The Opera House, a world of velvet curtains, gilded balconies and soaring music. Here, under the warm glow of the stage lights, great stories of love, betrayal and sacrifice unfold. For centuries, audiences have gathered in these hallowed halls, suspending their disbelief to be transported by the sheer power of the human voice, witnessing passion and tragedy performed with breathtaking skill. The drama is palpable, the emotions raw, and the final boos are met with thunderous applause, a celebration of the artifice. But what happens when the artifice crumbles? What occurs when the line between the performance and the performer dissolves in the most final way imaginable? When the stage death becomes a genuine tragedy, and the soprano's final note is not just the end of an aria, but the end of a life? The spectacle, once a source of entertainment, transforms into a moment of profound and unsettling reality, leaving an audience bewildered, caught between applause and horror. Tonight we draw back the curtain on some of the most shocking final acts in the history of opera. These are the true haunting stories of performers whose passion for their craft led them to the very edge of existence. They did not merely play a role, they lived it, breathed it, and in a startling twist of fate, died in it. Join us as we explore the moments when the drama on stage became terrifyingly, irrevocably real. Our first story takes us to the heart of New York City, to the grand stage of the Metropolitan Opera. The year is 1897. The air is thick with anticipation for a performance of Friedrich von Flotow's light-hearted opera. The audience, dressed in their finest, settles in for an evening of romance and comedy, little knowing they are about to witness a scene far more dramatic than anything written in the libretto. On stage is the esteemed French bass, Armand Castelmurray, a veteran performer known for his rich voice and commanding presence. He is playing the role of Tristan, a grumpy but ultimately lovable old farmer. Castelmurray, at 63, is a pillar of the opera community, having graced stages across Europe and America. His voice, though perhaps not at its youthful peak, still possesses the weight and authority that the role demands. As the opera progresses, he moves through his scenes with the practiced ease of a master, his every gesture and note familiar and comforting to the seasoned opera-goers in the audience. The performance reaches the second act. Castelmurray is seated on a bench, a part of the staging, as the other principals sing around him. He is meant to be a stoic, listening figure, but as the scene unfolds, something begins to go terribly wrong. A subtle shift occurs in his posture. His head, which should be held high, begins to droop, his body slumping imperceptibly at first, then more noticeably against the back of the bench. A few keen-eyed observers in the front rows might have noticed, but most assume it is simply a piece of theatrical business, a character choice. He is, after all, portraying an old man. Perhaps this is a new interpretation, a way to convey the character's weariness. The music swells and the lead tenor, Jean de Resque, continues his aria, his voice filling the cavernous hall. The audience remains captivated by the primary action, their eyes fixed on the singer at the center of the stage. Castelmurray in the background becomes little more than a part of the scenery, a silent participant in the unfolding drama. Then it happens. With a sudden yet strangely quiet finality, Castelmurray collapses. He slides from the bench and falls to the stage floor with a soft thud, partially obscured by the other performers. To the audience, this appears to be a masterful piece of acting. A dramatic fall, a commitment to the role that is truly astonishing. A ripple of applause breaks out, a spontaneous tribute to what they perceive as an incredibly realistic portrayal of a character fainting or perhaps even dying within the story. The applause is genuine, born of appreciation for what seems to be a moment of theatrical brilliance. But on stage, the other singers know the terrifying truth. A wave of panic, expertly concealed, passes between them. Jean de Resque, ever the professional, continues to sing, his voice unwavering, even as his eyes betray a flicker of horror. Another singer, Giuseppe Campanari, subtly moves towards Castelmurray, attempting to shield his fallen colleague from the audience's view, while subtly trying to rouse him. The music carries on, a bizarre and chilling counterpoint to the silent tragedy unfolding. The performers must continue. The show, as they say, must go on. They maneuver around Castelmurray's still form, their movements carefully choreographed to appear natural, their voices never faltering. It is a testament to their immense discipline that the opera continues without a single missed cue, the illusion for the audience maintained almost to the end. Only when the curtain finally falls at the end of the act does the grim reality become clear. Stagehands rush forward, the music stops abruptly, and a hush falls over the house as the truth begins to dawn. Backstage, it is confirmed. Armand Castelmary is dead, having suffered a massive heart attack. The applause he received was not for a performance, but for his own death. He had given his final encore, an act so real it was mistaken for art. We now travel to the city of San Francisco in 1932. The opera is Ruggero Leoncavallo's, a work famous for its exploration of the thin veil between performance and reality, a story of a traveling clown who must make an audience laugh while his own heart is breaking. It is a meta-narrative, an opera about putting on a show, and its themes of jealousy and rage would prove to be unnervingly prophetic on one fateful evening. In the lead role of Canio, the tormented clown, is the Swedish tenor Aroldo Lindi. Lindi was renowned for his powerful, dramatic voice, he was physically imposing with a stage presence that could command any theater. The role of Canio was one of his signatures, a perfect vehicle for his immense vocal and dramatic talents. The opera's most famous aria, Vesti la Giubba, put on the costume, is a cri de coeur for the artist whose personal suffering must be hidden behind a painted smile. For Lindi, this aria was more than just music, it was a visceral expression of anguish. That night, as Lindi prepared to sing Vesti la Giubba, the audience could sense something extraordinary. He launched into the aria with a ferocity that was shocking even for him. His voice, filled with a raw, almost primal pain, echoed through the War Memorial Opera House. He sang of the clown's fate, forced to entertain while his life falls apart. The emotion was so potent, so seemingly authentic that it transcended performance. It felt as though they were witnessing a man's soul being laid bare. He reached the aria's climax, the iconic, heartbreaking lament, Ridi, Pagliaccio, sul tuo amore infranto. Laugh, clown, at your broken love, he sang the line, his voice soaring to the rafters, holding the final note with incredible power. He then delivered the concluding line, a despairing, sob-racked laugh as the score demands. The audience erupted in a deafening ovation, a roar of approval for what was undeniably one of the most electrifying performances they had ever witnessed. But as the applause rained down, Lindi staggered. He clutched at his chest, his face already streaked with the clown's painted tears, contorting in genuine agony. This was not part of the staging. This was not the character of Canio. This was the man, Aroldo Lindi, in mortal distress. He stumbled towards the wings, trying to make his exit, but his strength failed him. He was collapsing. Another performer, the baritone Alfredo Gandolfi, was waiting in the wings for his cue. He saw Lindi fall and rushed onto the stage, catching the massive tenor in his arms just as he collapsed. The audience, their cheers dying in their throats, watched in stunned silence. The line between the story of the heartbroken clown and the fate of the singer portraying him had vanished completely. The painted tears on Lindi's face mingled with the pallor of death. Gandolfi gently lowered his friend and colleague to the stage floor. The curtain was hastily brought down, plunging the scene into darkness and shielding the tragic tableau from the public's gaze. A doctor was called from the audience, but it was too late. Aroldo Lindi had suffered a massive heart attack, his heart giving out at the precise moment he had poured every last ounce of his physical and emotional energy into his art. He died as he had lived on the stage, in the arms of a fellow performer, having just sung one of the most demanding and emotionally draining arias in the entire operatic repertoire. He had truly embodied the tragic clown, giving a performance so powerful it required the ultimate sacrifice. The show did not go on. A substitute was found, but the spirit of the evening was broken, leaving only the haunting echo of a clown's final tragic laugh. We return to the hallowed stage of the Metropolitan Opera in New York, this time in the year 1960. The opera is Giuseppe Verdi's sprawling epic, La Forza del Destino, The Force of Destiny. It's a work rife with curses, duels, and tragic coincidences, a story where fate seems to toy cruelly with the lives of its characters. On this particular evening, March 4th, the opera's title would take on a chilling and literal meaning for one of America's greatest baritones, Leonard Warren. Warren was at the absolute zenith of his career. He was the Met's leading Verdi baritone, celebrated for his magnificent voice, which was often described as an instrument of burnished gold. It possessed immense size, a rich timbre, and an astonishing upper register. He was a beloved figure, known for his dedication and his powerful interpretations. He was singing the role of Don Carlo de Vargas, a man consumed by a relentless quest for vengeance. The performance had been proceeding magnificently. Warren was in superb voice, his portrayal of the vengeful Don Carlo charged with intensity. The audience was enthralled, witnessing a master at the peak of his powers. The opera reached its third act, and the moment for Don Carlo's great aria Morir tremenda cosa, urna fatale del mio destino, which translates to die, a momentous thing, fatal urn of my destiny. The aria is a dramatic soliloquy in which Don Carlo contemplates mortality and fate before discovering the identity of his hated enemy. Warren stood center stage, the full force of the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra behind him. He began the aria, his voice filling the great hall with its customary splendor and power. He sang the opening lines, Morir tremenda cosa, to die, a momentous thing, with profound gravity, the words hanging in the air with an unintended weight. He continued, building the scene's dramatic tension, his voice soaring through Verdi's demanding phrases. He sang of destiny, of the fatal urn that holds his future. He was approaching the aria's triumphant cabaletta, a moment of vocal fireworks. He sang the line, E salvo, o gioia, I am safe, o joy. But as he prepared to launch into the next phrase, something went wrong. He suddenly fell silent. A strange, confused look crossed his face. He coughed once, then twice, and his arms went limp at his sides. He took a staggering step backward and then, with a terrifying stillness, pitched forward, falling face first onto the stage. The conductor, Thomas Shippers, seeing the collapse, immediately stopped the orchestra. A deathly silence descended upon the 3,800 people in the audience, a silence more profound and deafening than any music. For a few moments, everyone was frozen, suspended in disbelief. Was this part of the drama, a stroke of directorial genius? But the stillness was too absolute, the fall too final. The other singers on stage, including tenor Richard Tucker, rushed to his side. The curtain was quickly lowered as Dr. Adrian Zorgniotti, a physician who happened to be in the audience, ran backstage, but his efforts were in vain. Leonard Warren, just 48 years old, had died instantly of a massive cerebral hemorrhage. The chilling irony of his final sung words, to die a momentous thing, was lost on no one. He had, in essence, sung his own epitaph. The performance was cancelled, and a dark superstition has clung to La Forza del Destino ever since, with some performers considering it a cursed opera. The force of destiny had claimed one of its greatest interpreters, turning the stage of the Met into a memorial for a voice silenced in its prime. Our final, and perhaps most unnervingly prophetic story, takes us back to the Metropolitan Opera, this time in 1996. The production is Leos Janáček's cryptic and philosophical opera, The Macropolis Case. The plot revolves around a mysterious woman, Emilia Marti, who has lived for over 300 years thanks to an alchemical elixir. The opera is a meditation on life, death, and the crushing burden of immortality. On stage this evening is tenor Richard Versal. Versal was a highly respected character tenor, a Helden tenor known for his stamina and his ability to tackle some of the most grueling roles in the repertoire. He was not playing a lead but a smaller yet pivotal role, the elderly clerk, Vitek. In the opera's opening scene, Vitek is working in a law office, sorting through ancient legal documents. The role requires him to climb a tall, rolling library ladder to retrieve a file from a high shelf. The opera begins. The stage is set to look like a dusty, cluttered law firm, dominated by shelves stacked high with folders and legal tomes. Richard Versal, fully in character as the aged Vitek, makes his entrance. He is 63 years old, the same age as Armand Castelmary when he died on the very same stage nearly a century before. He begins his ascent up the 20-foot ladder, a key piece of stage business that sets the scene. From his high perch, Versal has one significant line to sing. Looking down from the top of the ladder, the character of Vitek reflects on the endless, tedious legal case he is working on. He sings the line, Skoda, ze se človek může dožít jen tak malo, which translates from the original Czech to, too bad you can only live so long. The line is a moment of dark, ironic foreshadowing within the context of an opera about a woman who has lived for centuries. Versal delivered the line with his characteristic professionalism. His voice, clear and strong, carried the sentiment perfectly. It was a simple phrase, one he had sung many times before in rehearsal and previous performances. But this time, the words would become his own, unwitting valediction. After singing the line, he remained at the top of the ladder as the staging required. Suddenly, and without any sound, he went rigid. The other performers on stage below him continued their dialogue, unaware that anything was amiss. Then, in a moment of shocking silence that seemed to stretch for an eternity, Richard Versailles suffered a massive heart attack. He lost consciousness instantly and fell backward from the top of the ladder, plummeting 20 feet to the stage floor below. He landed with a sickening thud that echoed throughout the silent theater. The performance immediately halted. The audience gasped in collective horror. This was no illusion, no carefully rehearsed stunt. The fall was brutally real. The house lights came up, the safety curtain was lowered, and the Met's general manager, Joseph Volpi, appeared before the stunned crowd to announce that the performance was canceled due to a medical emergency. Backstage, paramedics worked feverishly, but it was too late. Richard Versailles was pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital. The eerie prophecy of his final sung words, "Too bad you can only live so long," sent a shiver through the entire opera world. It was a coincidence so stark, so chilling, it felt like a line scripted by fate itself. On the stage dedicated to telling a story about the meaning of a finite life, a performer's life had come to a sudden, tragic, and unforgettable end. The final curtain falls, not to applause but to a stunned and somber silence. The stories of Armand Castelmary, Aroldo Lindi, Leonard Warren and Richard Versailles are more than just tragic anecdotes. They are profound testaments to an extraordinary and perhaps perilous dedication. These were artists who poured every ounce of their being into their craft, whose passion was so immense that the stage, the place of their greatest triumphs, became their final resting place. Their last breath was not a quiet fading but a dramatic, public and unforgettable note in the grand opera of life itself. These performers did not simply die at work, they died as their work, their personal tragedy forever fused with the characters they portrayed and the music they sang. Their final moments have become a permanent, haunting part of opera lore, turning their last performances into unintentional memorials. The stages where they fell are now imbued with their memory, and the arias they sang are forever colored by the knowledge of the ultimate price they paid. They remind us that behind every performance there is a human heart, beating with a passion that can, in the rarest and most shocking of moments, beat its very last. What do you think of these incredible and tragic stories? Can you imagine witnessing such an event? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. The dedication of these performers is a powerful, if somber, thing to contemplate. And if you found these stories as fascinating as we did, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the unusual and forgotten corners of history. Thank you for watching.